Open up! Police! Say, I think you might be hiding something in here. Why are you nervous? Got something to hide? I just want to ask you a few simple questions. Police encounters are a sadly commonplace event. And there are a multitude of things to remember when dealing with the police. Similarly, there's a multitude of books, literature, and law concerning your rights as a citizen and what strides you can take to protect your civil rights during police encounters. After research, I'm here to inform you of those rights, particularly the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment. Also, there are 3 theaters during which we're most likely to run into the law. First, your home. Second, your car. And finally, in and of yourself. Now, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 2901, a man's home is his castle, and a person has a right, pursuant to the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment, to be secure in their homes from unreasonable searches and seizures. However, it is a police officer's duty to carry out the law, to enforce the law, and to provide justice using the most appropriate and applicable means necessary. Now, if an agent comes to your door, they will most likely want to ask you a series of questions pursuant to an investigation. Keep in mind that these are trained law enforcement professionals, and they will likely use a series of tactics, even rhetorical questioning, to solicit statements from you, the likes of which can be avoided by simply refusing to answer. Refusing to answer is not a crime. However, lying to an officer is. So keep in mind that when an officer asks you where you were a particular night, say June 13th, 2012, and you answer anything other than where you actually were, and the officer can prove where you were, you've committed a federal crime, punishable by 5 to 8 years of imprisonment. Also, in that regard, it is imperative that you remain silent, because even though an officer may claim to get a warrant for your arrest, or threaten you by saying that if you are remaining silent you seem guilty, they cannot use that against you in a court of law pursuant to the Adamson case. Michael Ratner, author of the informative book, Hell No! Your Right to Dissent in 21st Century America, writes that under no circumstances can you be compelled to answer questions without an attorney present. In fact, your request to see an attorney should end the questioning. Finally, according to J.D. David M. Waksman, author of the Search and Seizure Handbook, 3rd edition, an agent can only search your home under certain circumstances. First, if they obtain consent from either you or a roommate. They can do this in a multitude of ways. They could ask, simply come inside your home. May I come inside and ask you a few questions? Even that invites the officer in for a brief investigatory search of the premises. However, a roommate cannot give consent to search a private space. Also, any and all objects in plain view can be seized as evidence and used against you. Another way an officer can intrude on your home is if they obtain a warrant signed by a judge and they present it clearly to the suspect before entering the home. There are 2 other ways an officer can enter your home, both of these without a warrant. First, if they are in hot pursuit of a suspect, and second, if they feel as if their lives or their partner's safety is in jeopardy at any time. Police officers are at a constant and unremitting danger surrounding their job, especially when dealing with suspects in their cars. Now, there are 2 important factors to remember when dealing with searches and seizures in your cars. First, reasonable suspicion, and second is probable cause. An officer only needs reasonable suspicion to stop a car, but he needs probable cause to search it. Pursuant to the United States v. Katz Supreme Court case, people have a lesser expectation of privacy in their cars. Thus, you have less protections under the Fourth Amendment while in your car. In the case Pennsylvania v. Labron, it was ruled that if a car is readily mobile and probable cause exists to believe that it contains contraband, the Fourth Amendment thus permits police to search the vehicle without further information. So, because an officer's life is in jeopardy, and because there's a lesser expectation of privacy, and it's an officer's duty to fulfill and uphold the law, They are allowed to search the vehicle given extraordinarily broad standards. Typically, an officer can be kept at bay using the same method I talked about earlier, simply remaining silent. Don't become a lawyer, in other words, and don't answer incriminating questions. Now, in and of yourself. An officer can stop you on the street given reasonable suspicion. And there is a third prong of the Fourth Amendment that does apply. That is the search and seizure of a person. An officer may at any time stop and frisk a person and doesn't need probable cause to do so. Only reasonable suspicion. A Terry stop is pursuant to the United States Supreme Court case Terry v. Ohio. And that is a brief, investigatory, warrantless search of any person on the street at any time from a law enforcement professional. There are 5 general criteria that make up a Terry stop. First, an officer may request to see your ID. Second, they may briefly question a suspect on scene. They could radio the station to verify any information that the suspect has delineated. They could seek consent for a comprehensive search, or they could transport the suspect a short distance for what's called a show-up. That is, bring the suspect back to the scene of the crime in hopes to remind witnesses or the victim who it was. A room is searched against the law and the body of a murdered man is found. The privacy of the home is infringed and the murderer goes free. We may not subject society to these dangers. Spoke Justice Benjamin Cardozo in the case People v. DeFore. Conversely, the United States Constitution provides certain rights to all people, including privacy and evasion of self-incrimination. These rights are so important, mind you, that they pass the Palko test. That is, they are implicit in the context of ordered liberty, and thus they are fundamental rights in any and all states. So in your home, in your car, and in and of yourself, you have the right to be secure in your persons, houses, papers, and effects. Now, H.G. Wells writes in his book, War of the Worlds, that as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. In these regards, the issue of privacy is always evolving, it's always changing, and it's always altering, depending upon the totality of the circumstances.